Welcome to Triple Threat, the podcast with Jamel President, where it's good news and good vibes all the time, baby.
When we left Portugal to come play with you in your system, Jamel, it was the best thing for Shane because you pushed him to do other things outside his box.
You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Jamel President and on Twitter at President Jamel. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast as I'll be bringing you a new interview every month. Hey, what's up, guys? Coming up next, we got Tyler and Jay Christmas. Tyler is from this area, Summerville, South Carolina, and got a scholarship at Duke University. This is their second time on the podcast. First year he was in high school. This year he's his freshman at Duke. But I wanted to bring him on to talk about the transition. I think the audience and those upcoming players need to hear about those trials and tribulations freshman athletes go through. In addition to that, talked about Jay being a dad, strategies to help the kids get going, right? For those early morning workouts, when adverse situations come, when kids don't want to work out, how do you deal with that? Very, very good stories on how to approach if you've got a kid, student athlete looking to get to the next level. All right, let's get into the interview. Well, I appreciate the time. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I just wanted to bring you guys in again and just talk about initially we talked about the transition from high school to college, and now you spend a whole year. Just want to talk about those learning curves, and so other athletes that's going to experience that can know how to move and know what to expect, especially coming from your dad perspective of working the kid out and expectations. So we just want to bring all that together to give the audience something to listen to. So starting off, just talk about the transition, from high school to take us back to your first day on campus and how that went, and workouts and all those things. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of emotions going on at once, man. You're trying to figure out where your classes are, trying not to be late, making sure you're on time for workouts, all that sort of stuff. It can be a little overwhelming at times, especially like that first week. But I mean, at the same time, it's very exciting. So that's something that I've been looking forward to my whole life, being in that competitive of an atmosphere, knowing that no matter what you do that day, you're going to get better 1%. That's something that Coach Fowler preaches in our program. So it was, I wouldn't say it was easy by any means, but again, embracing that challenge is all part of it. Like I said, it's something that I've been looking forward to.
All right, you hit it right on the head. To a normal person, all that can be very overwhelming. But if you got a goal and you've been working this long, it's just like it's another day to go at it. So that's what it is. That's what it takes to be a champion per se. So talk about the new life, because in high school, it's more structured, where you're getting driven everywhere if you don't have a license yet, and you got to be a certain place for high school practice and whatnot. But in college, you're pretty much on your own. You know what I'm saying? You have to have your own schedule set. Talk about how important it is, and I'll get back to having dad's involvement and having the structure, because you was in the gym at 6 a.m. at Goals, right? So ain't nothing new to you from getting up early and putting that work in. Talk about how beneficial that those workouts and those times spent going into another whole regimen. Someone that's really not used to that had to really hit that ground, not used to the waking up and used to intensity workouts. Talk about how the preparation for your dad and your workouts was easily prepare you for the college workouts.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it all the time, man. Like if I hadn't have done that, I would have been all over the place. Like there's a lot of structure, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. It's just you have to stay on top of it yourself. You have to do it. You have to get yourself there on time. Now we do not lift at 6 in the morning. We lift at 6 at night, but I'm still getting up that early for class, so it's a little bit of a different motivation, but
For
you
sure.
still got to have it. But again, it's like um, I feel bad for some of those kids that didn't have
Mm,
guidance like that in their earlier years to prepare them for something like that.
right. And I spoke to you like a couple of months, and I think you hurt your finger or something, where your batting hand or something. It was a situation where um you was wanting to play and you couldn't play because you was injured. Talk about that mental aspect of that, because here again, going through all this work, getting up to Duke, you got there expecting to play, doing real well, and then injury happened. Talk about the mental state, and what you was going through and how you come out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mental side of things is the hardest part most of the time. Especially, coming from most of these kids are big fish in a small pond.
Mm,
And then you get to, you're playing at the highest level, surrounded by those types of guys all the time. You don't have a guaranteed spot on the field like you did back in high school.
mm,
Um, and you're out there busting your ass every day, and something unfortunate like that happens. It's hard not to sit there and get pissed off. And I've had my fair share of days of getting pissed off at it, but you can either, put your head down and sulk and pout about it, or you can go to work and do what you can to find ways to get better. So, man, I couldn't throw, I couldn't hit, but what I did is I put this hand behind my back, took hundreds of ground balls each day.
awesome, awesome. Talk about the level of competitiveness and skill level, because right, leaving high school, I mean, you kind of dominated this level, but then again, you said you're moving up to another level where they all this type of players just like you. What do you see that helped you a lot from the different levels of basically a senior or a junior at a skill level versus you being a freshman? What was the difference in your competitive mark into those classifications and you coming as a freshman?
I wouldn't say there was any difference in competitiveness. I mean, I'm still out there to compete just the same as everybody else, but it can be fleeting at times.
Mm,
You go out there as a younger 18, 19-year-old kid as a freshman. And I mean, shit, I played with a kid that was 24.
mm.
um,
Oh wow.
so, that's a big difference. But, again, the mental side, you got to remember that you belong there, you earned your spot there, and you are one of them. Just because they're older than you and they have a little bit more experience. And I'm very grateful for the guys that were at Duke and those upperclassmen.
Mm,
They were all very welcoming to us freshmen. Will Hoyle over there at second took me under his wing, showed me the works.
nice.
So I couldn't be more thankful for those guys that kind of showed me the ropes of this
Right,
program.
right. For the audience that's listening, Tyler, you know, we're human beings, right? And we can be mad at our dad, mom, coach, whatever. What are some things that you've learned um, that you would suggest, players do when they get upset at the coach or feeling indifferent about their playing time? What are some things that you would think, or what are some approaches that you would go about to help that?
Oh, I'm sorry, we cut out for a minute. Could you repeat what you asked?
My fault. I said, as human beings, sometimes we get upset at our dad, our mom, brother, sister, coaches per se. In this environment is mostly players, can get upset between their players or coaches. And I'm pretty sure if that happened, it won't happen. It's going to happen plenty times again. What are your approaches when you get mad or upset at your performance, and then not getting the nod? How do you deal with those situations when it comes to player and coaches?
So within yourself personally, especially playing baseball, this is a game of failure, and everybody knows that.
Mm,
And it can be really hard, and sometimes some of the best of us still struggle at it. You know, Having the ability to move on and mentally push through a lot of this stuff. I mean, it's inevitable in baseball. You're going to go through slumps. You're going to struggle, especially playing at the highest level. It's going to happen more often than not.
Right.
And you just have to, again, you can either sit there and pout about it, or you can put your head down and go to work. And that's the difference maker. That's what separates the good from the great. But as far as like player coach type of stuff, you can't, if he jumps your shit, gets on your ass, you can't take that personally.
Right.
He's going to do that to the guy next to you.
Right.
You can't get pissed off at your coach. He's, especially at a place like Duke, that's a top 25 program year in and year out. Excellence is expected out of all of us. And when you fall below that mark, you're going to hear about it. So it's all just holding each other accountable.
For sure. Academically, we know Duke is a high academic school, and involving sports and traveling and practice. I mean, it can be, again, overwhelming. What are some of your approaches when it comes to studying? Because when the guys are going out and going to the movies and you got a big test the next day, you got to make a sacrifice, right? What are your approach to some of those things when it comes to academic and athletics?
Yeah, I mean, I had to do that plenty of times. Guys would ask me, "Hey, you want to go do this? Want to go get a bite to eat?" I'm like, "Nah, man, I gotta go hit up the K Center, get some study hours in." Yeah, it's hard to take the latter between those two options. Most everybody wants to go out and have a good time, and
Sure.
there's plenty of opportunities to do that in college. But you're also there for a reason, and um, keeping that in sight is crucial, especially at a place like Duke, um, that is prestigious academically. And I mean, I figured that out pretty quickly when I got there. That just like they expect excellence from us athletically, they're going to expect excellence academically as well.
For sure, for sure. Now, the hard work that you did to get, to be competitive in high school and have spent the year in college already, what's your approach to working out now, especially in the off season? Is it something that you find that's you need to do because you've been doing it so long and you feel that, we can feel when we go in a nice regimen and we don't work out for a while, our bodies can feel that. But again, you having a long season, you just came off, you might want to rest. What's your approach to that? Because that can be, what I'm saying, like a little catch-22 situation.
Yeah. And everybody's different, but I personally am always at my best when I am in a certain regiment and I stick to that regiment every day. I'm leaving the dorm at a certain time, finishing up eating at this time. It's all very meticulous, but that's just me. That's how I operate. That's how I'm at my best. When that starts to slip is when I start to slip.
Mm.
And again, you got to hold yourself accountable. And when you start to notice that, you got to kind of go back to the drawing board. Like what are we doing wrong here? And now you're sleeping in an extra 30 minutes. You got to get up a little bit earlier. So it's all like, again, it's all tough, and it's all you got to kind of play with it, weigh out your options, what's going to work, what's not going to work. Because tossing up like workouts, schoolwork, you got exams, you still got to get sleep, especially when we're in season and we got games and stuff. We're getting to the field around like 2, 3 o'clock, and we're not getting back to our dorms till close to midnight.
Right.
So keeping all those things in mind is crucial.
In this timeout message, we got Mike Hostelo.
I'm just a guy that always taught to look at everybody as important, right? Everybody's important. Everybody's a person. Everybody laughs, everybody cries, everybody feels. And what, just because I'm Mike Costello and I spent all this money on TV and advertising, that doesn't make me any better than I was Mike Costello in Laurel Bay who couldn't make 10 free throws. I mean, I'm the same dude, right? That I was when I was 12.
Right.
So I'm never going to forget that. My dad would smack me if I ever became anything better than that.
Now let's get back to the interview. And and baseball is a little different than other sports where you probably play what 3 games in 2 days. How does that really work? Like if you go to a weekend game, you end up playing that team 3 times. How does that work?
Yeah, so usually our typical week is going to be 4 games a week. We'll have a midweek on either Tuesday or Wednesday, and then we'll have a weekend series starting Friday. It'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You'll play 1 game each day. Um, that's usually how it is. Sometimes we'll have a 5 game week, and we'll play midweeks Tuesday and Wednesday with a weekend series. So it all depends. But usually it's going to be 4 games per week.
Got you. So in the overall estimation, how do you feel personally? You did your freshman season, and this 2-part question, and what are your expectations for this upcoming season as well?
Look, man, I had a hell of a freshman year. Some people are going to look at it differently because I redshirted. I didn't play at all.
Mm.
But again, you got to look at the bigger picture. And I'm grateful that me and Pollard were able to have, keep in close contact with that sort of stuff because I would much rather redshirt and have a full 4 years of eligibility than, get thrown a bone and have a couple of bats, maybe end the year with 10, 15 at bats and, waste my freshman year. So I'm very grateful that me and him were able to work through that and, that he's one of those guys that's looking out for players like that. But I mean, I learned a lot, not just from a baseball standpoint, but just, how to deal with life situations. Getting injured was a big part of it, going through that adversity. You learn how to handle stuff yourself. You don't have mom and dad there around, so you got to take care of yourself. I went to the emergency room, um, and that had mom stressing. But
Nothing to do with alcohol.
yeah, no, let's clear that. I had food poisoning, but anyway, point being, they weren't there to handle that. I had to call 911 myself, and it's all rewarding in a sense. Even going through those struggles,
Sure.
and that's something that Coach Pollard preaches is embracing your struggles and embracing failure. Because again, it's going to happen a lot in our sport, and if you don't know how to cope with that, and you don't know how to deal with it, it's a very important life skill to have. And I think that I took a huge step in that sense, development wise this year, because I had to go through so much adversity and push through all that stuff.
For sure. Let's transition to Dad for a second. We'll come back to you a little bit, Tyler. And Jay, when we first met, and I like me having a son, and I watched you for about a month before I really came up and spoke to you, because I was just watching on how you react to Tyler, right? How you were so delicate at the same time, persistent in getting him where he needs to be. And working with my son right now, I can see the challenges, right? I understand the challenges because he takes my time for granted, right? He knows I'm always there, versus if I was paying someone to do that, he would give them the utmost attention. Not saying he doesn't listen, but you know what I'm talking about. It's a little struggle here and there.
What you're talking about.
So as dads, we don't want to be at the point where we want to push him too much and not push him enough, right? So my question to you is, it ain't over yet, but we kind of got over the first hump, right? And how do you feel about that as a dad, of getting, your kid, pushing them and talking to them and doing those late night workouts, going on the internet, finding different things to make things happen? How do you feel getting over the first hump, per se?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. We went through the same stuff. I think it was like a light bulb that clicked. I think we talked about this last time, whenever we had these moments to where, again, they haven't had life experiences like we've had, to where, if you do these things, this is what's going to happen, right? It takes this to get to that. They don't understand it with kids. They want to go play, do whatever. And I'm like, hey, man, just do 1% more than everybody else. Just give me an hour and a half of your time once a day, and you push those things on them, and then it becomes routine. But the light bulb is we're hard on them. And there's no way, I know how you are too. There's no way you want perfection, because you know that if they're able to do these things, they're going to perform well. And if you're hard on them now, everything's going to be easier on them later. Well, I learned that I had to embrace positive reinforcement on him. So everything he did, even if he messed up, I still had to tell him how good he was doing, which changed his outlook, where he wanted to be around me, wanted to do those things. I was manipulating, right? That's what we're doing, trying to manipulate what the situation is. And I had much more success doing that. And then it just kind of steamrolled from there. And now that's transitioned. I spend a lot of time with the girls now, where, I mean, we talk, we still have an open relationship where he's going to openly communicate with me about things going on in his life. I follow what goes on. But, like, we're not helicopter parents. He's an adult now. He's at school. I have the utmost trust in the coaching staff there with Coach Pollard and the rest of those guys he has. The trainer, everybody, they communicate very well with us. I think he was, you don't know, he broke his wrist too. So he broke his finger and he broke his wrist in the spring. Those guys were terrific, especially with my wife. Us as men, we take it a little easier. My wife's worried, wanting to take a plane, get out there, whatever she's got to do, which is mama bear, right? But I mean, that place is incredible. They take care of them. So it's a little different relationship now. He had those struggles. He talks to me about it, but he's mature enough and he understands things now that he's able to work through them himself and with his coach, instead of having to lean on us so much for those things, which is relieving in a sense that he's mature enough to do those things. And he's right, and again, I don't know if I tell you this in the podcast. I mean, we had talks because they went up there early in the summer, and I told him, you're a good looking kid, man. Like, just like I told you when you were young, girlfriends and driver's license will get you in trouble. Like, look, man, you're going to get to school. I can't explain it. Nobody can. There's guys that can party every night and chase girls all day long till the sun comes up. They're still going to show up on that field and perform.
Right.
And you don't know it. Nobody can explain it. That's just the way the world's aligned for them. And sooner or later, it might catch up with them. But you got to understand that's not you.
Right.
So I think he was at school a week and was like, man, you are so right. I'm like, hey, man, it's never going to change.
Right.
Those things never change. But you have to embrace some certain things that go on, And again, I think my wife does a really good job of teaching these kids structure and time management, especially with schoolwork and everything else. And so those things transition, and because if you can't do those two things in college, it's going to be extremely miserable, because those coaches demand those things of you. And they're going to have structure, and they're going to help set your day up for you in certain places you got to be at certain times. But yeah, I thought he did extremely well, and we talk about those things. And I think obviously you're talking to him, you can see he's very mature. And he understands things that other kids take for granted, that, we're not those parents, I don't go into things and think, he's got to play. If he doesn't play as a freshman, something's going on, whatever's going on. Everybody wants their kid to play. Why else are you doing it? He competed. Right. Things that are out of your control, and they made the right decision. Does that make sense? Whatever those coaches are deciding, those are the right decisions. He's grown up enough that he understands that. And, and we talk about it like, hey, man, some of these kids, these coaches don't care about. They're giving them 15, 20 at bats. You would think they're playing, some of these guys are playing 55, 60 game seasons, and you got 15 at bats. And if you in baseball is different in some sports. If you step on that field and pitch run, you can't redshirt. Your whole season's burnt.
Wow, didn't know
you stepped on that field and did one thing. Wow. You pitch one inning, you throw one pitch. All those things. That's and obviously there's different red shirts you can do, but I mean that's important that Coach Pollard sees that and says, hey man, he had an older team this year. I think there's maybe nine graduate students. I'm not sure if it was 5 or 9. I mean, look, man, those older kids have a nod. I mean, I think what he did a good job of was, and he's had guys like yourself, good and older guys that influenced him, that have been around and experienced high level play, And on the baseball side, Britt Raines that played professionally, Bo Thompson, these guys that he's been exposed to, like, hey man, get comfortable early. That's what kills freshmen,
Right.
is that they don't get comfortable. These other guys that have been in a program, they show up as another day. They're all comfortable.
Right.
You show up and you're wanting to prove this and do that, you all the stress on you. If you don't get comfortable, man, it's going to be extremely miserable for you. And I think he did a really good job of understanding that and embracing it and saying, this is what he saw. This is what these guys are telling me about, man.
Right.
Just from the first weeks on campus and getting to know these guys. I mean, it's a bunch of dynamics that go on. And,
Right.
I'm proud of him. I thought he had an extremely good fall for a freshman. And then, that transitioned to the spring and he was doing well, again, you have a role. Every player has a role, and it's, finding that thing. And, he's got a good relationship with the coaches, and the coach, explaining them different things. And hey, it worked out for him, and you can tell, obviously he looks happy, doesn't he?
The most important message to get across to student athletes suffering from mental health issues is that you're not alone. Many student athletes deal with depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and other mental health struggles. If this is the case, speak to someone like a counselor, a parent, a trusted adult, or your fellow teammate. Adults who are supporting a student athlete should be aware of the signs. A student athlete who is experiencing mental health difficulties might have constant fatigue, loss of appetite, mood swings, apathy, or even declining grades and or social isolation. A student athlete's mental health can be severely affected by an injury. An athlete's entire life becomes about their sport. And when they lose the ability to play, it can take a huge toll mentally. As we continue to reduce the stigma around mental health, hopefully more middle and high school level student athletes will feel confident discussing their health, whether it be mental or physical. The Triple Threat podcast will be adding a psychology aspect in season 2. We will be doing our part to help destigmatize mental health when it comes to student athletes. So subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform so you never miss an episode. Now let's get back to the interview. Yeah, what I want you to talk to the parents, Jay, is that, Tyler, once he get on the field, on the field, he's got to do his thing regardless, no matter what. But talk to the parents about how important it is to have your kids in certain environments, right? Because parents just think that from a basketball standpoint, just go to tournament. They think that the more time you get seen, that's going to increase your chances. And we both know it's all about the development. It's all about the training, the weightlifting, the nutrition part. So talk to some parents about, because every situation is different. Not saying your approach with Tyler is gonna work with every parent, but just give us the basis of what's important when getting your
No, you said it on the head, man. It's everybody's going to be different, but baseball, just like that, you get these guys, you're spending all this money on these tournaments and stuff, right? Can you hear me? Is it not coming through?
I hear you now, right there.
You're spending all this money on these tournaments and stuff, wanting your kid to get seen, but the bottom line is that if you're not performing, then what are you doing it for? I get hit up a lot from people in the baseball world that have younger kids that think, I got the magic sauce because where Tyler's at. I mean, and that's fine. And I tell them the truth all the time, that I can only tell you what my kid does. And I think some people are naive because, and a good friend of mine, his son's, middle school age, he's playing, and he was with a group of coaches the other day, and they were talking about Tyler, and he brought Tyler up, and like some of the parents were there, like, oh, that kid was just really good, and my buddy's like, you just don't understand, man. Like, I've known his dad for a long time. Like, this kid did this every day. And he did. We had structure with that, but he did something with baseball to help him with being athletic and baseball wise every single day for years. All right. So those things are important. But I mean, I just got hit up, probably an hour before we got on this thing. Somebody asking me about, their kid's 10 years old and they got selected to go to some baseball tournament thing, he's 10. What do you think? Coaches are coming to watch this. They're like, look, that's all about like, hey, if you want your kid to have that experience, right? And I'm not downplaying because there's plenty of people that think that way. I mean, I thought that way at one point for probably about 10 seconds, but you kind of realize like, hey man, this is a moneymaker, right? These people were trying to make money off of this. But again, it's an experience. And we did things like that. He went to baseball youth nationals when he was younger. There ain't no coaches out there, but I did that for the experience because I wanted him to be uncomfortable being around people he didn't know, doing things he didn't know, coaches he wasn't familiar with, to try and make him grow as a player, because I thought at that time that's what he needed. Right. And so what I'm getting at is what your point is. You have to do development. So if you're going to spend $600 on this baseball tournament, and then you're spending another $1,000 on your hotel and everything. I mean, IMG's got a baseball camp that's for a week that you probably get a lot more out of than him going to that tournament. Right. Cresley that does the athletic stuff. That's probably the better guy to go to get, some athletic training that you're going to spend money on to help your kid develop, because if he learns those things when he's young, it's the moon's the limit later on, right? Those things, if you got it, but that's what it's all about development. And again, what we did worked for Tyler.
For sure.
And I've had to tweak some of the stuff I'm doing for my daughters, right? Because they all have different personalities. And it's a struggle, trust me.
And that's a segue into my next question, because I was going to talk about that, right? Yeah, people think you got the special sauce, right? Because my little brother went to Auburn first, and same thing. My dad had him going through the same, doing things every day, had him in camp, and he was an All-American in football at the state of South Carolina. But again, he did things every day, and everybody was calling him, thinking he had the special sauce, right? So my question to you was, I know you said you had to give positive reinforcement to Tyler to get him going, but sometimes females can take that a little bit more differently, as of not working hard, and they can get really complacent if they hear that. What's your approach to when it comes to that? With female athletes.
And again, my daughters are extremely athletic, and they're built like they work hard, but they have that women attitude sometimes with me, because I'm not a soccer player,
right?
But I study the game.
For sure.
Right. But I know athletic things and what to do. They work hard. There's no doubt about it. It's a little, I think, and especially the middle one, she's at the gym every day. She loves going to the gym. I think the trick with that is, and I don't mean this to sound positive or negative any way toward women or anything, but women like to look good. Right. So I think that's a very easy thing to do once she started seeing results where it's like, hey, I want to go to the gym. She's wanting me to take, where it's not having to wake her up. She's up, let's go. She's getting results from it, so she enjoys it.
Right.
But then she sees the results in the field as well. The young one is the workhorse, right? She's on the field, like that one's she's hard to coach for me personally, because she's just like me. So it's like this two bulls butting heads all the time. But she's a tank on the field, man. She doesn't play games. I read a thing on Bo Jackson one time where he didn't like going to practice. She's kind of that way. She doesn't like practice. Because it's not full on. It's not competitive to her.
Right.
She likes games. She likes getting dirty. So I kind of
like an Iverson per se.
Practice. She's it's like, I don't want to go to practice, but she goes to the games. She always performs. She's all in. But yeah, it's a little different. And I don't think I give them positive reinforcement because of again, Tyler was the guinea pig with a lot of stuff. but I'm very demanding with them because he fit the profile,
Mm,
right?
mm,
You've seen him, like
mm,
tall, athletic, lean kid. My daughter's 5'4".
mm.
And again, I go through and I'm not saying that it's the perfect sauce. She does the research herself too, but somebody's going to do the other part, the other end, where I go through these colleges and she says, hey, these are the schools I'd like to go to and play soccer at and go to school there, which is important. You got to want to go to school there because if there's no soccer, then are you still good with this school?
Right.
But I go through the rosters, because these coaches are going to recruit the similar girls every year.
Every year.
Very seldomly do they veer from that. They all have their own tendencies of how to do things. So I go through the rosters and see what are the girls that they're recruiting? How tall are they? Were they athletic makeup? I go and I go and watch. You can find flicks on these girls how they play. Like what kind of athletic girls are they looking for? That makes sense, right? I'm trying to see what the player profile is that these coaches are looking for. And if your daughter doesn't fit that, I'm not saying she can't go there, but it's going to be a little harder to struggle because they have their tendencies on how they recruit. And so that's important to know those things. And again, all of them. Hey, you want to go to school there? Then you do everything to make that coach tell you no.
And
Right.
that's a major point because now you're not dealing with the kid's athleticism trying to get in a system that don't even look in her way. Not saying she's not good enough for that system, but that coach is not even looking her way for that type of prototype he's looking for. That's a huge something to think about when you're talking about recruiting.
And again, it's personal opinion. I tell her that all the time. I said, if you were 5'10", this would have been over with 2 years ago.
Good point.
And she's got soccer offers. She does. She's just doing the same thing Tyler did. She's waiting to see, and she's getting started senior year. She's playing at JFC, which is down in Jacksonville. So that shows you that we are very supportive parents because we're driving 4 hours just to go to practice. 4 hours home. My wife did it 3 times last week with both girls. So we're going to give every opportunity we can to our kids, not because we're crazy parents, but because that's the right thing to do.
For sure.
That makes
sense. Our parents don't get that, Jay, and I'm glad you said it because they real hesitant because they're afraid of the results not working the way they expect them to. Well, regardless of that, the kids still learning a lot. They're still gaining experiences. They're still gaining a lot of skill sets they need in real life. So I'm glad you said that because parents they push the brakes because they don't want to be, at the end of the day, when they don't get what they expect, they feel like they failed the kid.
No, and you should have my wife on here, not me, but she's the workhorse behind this, man. It's little things that we talk about. Like, so my wife talks about how we interact with each other is always teaching our kids. So this is no different, Sure. If your parents are loving relationship and kid around with each other and do those things, then these kids see everything that you do. And it's so different with this. They sometimes I don't, you look at them and go, I can't believe they don't realize what we're doing for them.
Right.
But we're a team. This whole family's a team. And that's where I tell these girls, when they ask me or, Tyler knows this, but if you ask me, I'm gonna give you an honest answer. I don't have daddy goggles and say, oh, my girls or my son's the best in the world. You're gonna get the truth, and he knows that. It's the personal opinion. And the girls that said that, during the soccer seasons, they always look over to me and they kind of made a comment they're looking for approval. So I don't want you to look for me for approval. I don't want that.
Right.
Because I love you and I'm proud of you no matter what you do. Right. I don't want you to look for me approval. You just play the game hard and things are gonna work out for you.
Right.
But they, think things are, it's just, I knew the baseball game too. I was familiar with it because I played it and I've been around it. Soccer is just a different beast, So, but again, I never got into this going, me and my wife didn't go, our kids have to play college athletics because we want to put it on Facebook and tell our friends about it. Yeah, I think that's what some of these parents, I think that's, truly that's what it is about. Like, and yes, we're proud of our kids. My wife posts stuff or whatever's going to happen, but we got into this because of my profession, seeing kids, I know the structure and the value that this stuff brings to the table, especially a program like Duke, the colleges my daughter's looking at. I know that this structure and stuff is going to help them be productive adults when they get out.
For sure. You made a good point. I want to ask you a question about, and I deal with this all the time too, about not bringing things from the field to home, right? Like I'm working with my kid one day, and he didn't go hard that day. He just gave me attitude, right? I get in the car and I'm pissed off, right? Sometimes I don't speak to him, and I feel and I did it a couple of times. I'm like, this ain't working. But when I figured out that I'm pissed off and I open up a conversation that had nothing to do with what we just left, it's much more receptive to him, and I'm not dealing with that emotions internally, right? So I'm pretty sure you had those same fights still going through them. How do you deal with that? Do you bring those emotions home, or you leave them right there in the gym on?
I try and leave them there. It was a lot easier with him because he was pretty good about that stuff, and we didn't, unless he asked me, we didn't talk about nothing. I saved those conversations for when we were training again. All right, so remember, the other night when you was hitting, this is what I saw, this is what we need to work on, and we still have those conversations now. He after he healed from his wrist and he had to go meet with his Coastal Plains League team. He ended up getting maybe 20 at bats in, I think, or so, 30 at bats. He went at the end of the season, but because he wants to compete, ain't gonna come here, and we watch on TV or send me a note, hey man, this is what's going on. And we just talk about it and start helping him work through it. Because he had a real good coach there too, as well, that would work with him and stuff. Because he knew that he was coming off an injury. Something was supposed to take maybe 5 or 6 weeks, ended up being more like 12. And that's a lot of muscle atrophy in that wrist and stuff, which is a big important. But I mean, another working through all those things. But I told him, I said, this is only going to help you. God don't give you more than you can handle.
For sure.
So this is going to be important for you later on in your career because dealing with all this stuff. But yeah, with the girls, sometimes it's different because the middle one, she immediately wants to know. As soon as the game's over, she's like, hey, what do you think? What did I do? And it's hard kind of because you've been there where you want to tell them, hey, but you gotta. I think I do a real good job of I take notes. On my phone, I write notes. Okay, and it's positive and negative. I write down. I try to do more positive than negative. Say, this is what you did well. And as soon as we get to next time we train, I say, this is what I think is going to be more beneficial to you if we work on this and that. But you did really good at this, which she sometimes takes really well. But sometimes, she knows me very well. If she pays attention to my mannerisms a little better than I hide it, if she does something, I'm like, man, it's that probably wasn't a good. No, that wasn't a good move there. Whatever she did, play wise, she'll know after the game. She'll like, yeah, I know he's mad because he didn't say that to me, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, try not to be that way. I'm trying to still be positive. What's going on? The young one, she's cocky, so if she does well, she knows she did well, and she should tell you she did well as soon as she comes up the field. Hey, you see that? Yeah, I know I do. Parker's not like that at all. She's a hard worker. She's more team oriented, which is extremely. It's like it's hard to teach that because they don't teach that. You just are that way. And in today's society, it's extremely hard. And that's what I'm proud of all my kids for the most part. Especially the two older ones, they are very team oriented. We talked to Tyler after games and stuff. He never downplayed any player or this guy did this and should be me in there. He was always like, hey man, the team's doing this, team's doing that. Coach talked about that. We're gonna bounce back tomorrow, which is important. And when we get off the phone, man, proud of this guy, man. Because in life, everything's team stuff. And he's all about his team. He's not worried about himself. He wasn't like, I didn't get to play today.
Right.
Oh, I didn't get to go in. It's always, hey man, these guys, they're plugging away, man. I hope, so-and-so, didn't have a good day, but he's going to bounce back tomorrow. And we'll see Coach has a good day after the game. So that's what's important to us. And, Parker's the same way. She's very team-oriented. Not that Marley's not. Marley wants to win at all costs.
Right.
She's team-oriented, but She's, you know, thought she's got that chip
For sure. For sure.
that you need to be really good. She has that.
And Tyler, I saw something on the I liked it on Instagram. I saw you in a pink flamingo uniform. Talk about
Yeah.
that. What's that all about?
The pink uniforms or just the summer team in general?
Both.
The pink uniforms are pretty cool, man.
I like them. I like them.
There's some guys will be embarrassed to wear pink, but I thought it was pretty cool. But summer ball in college is a little bit different than like travel ball when you're growing up. It's a professional schedule, and again, like time management is key. I mean, we were playing every single day just about, and I mean, some days, we'd get back from wherever we were playing at like 3, 4 in the morning, and then we'd have to wake up at noon, and we're leaving to go to Macon, 5-hour drive. So it's tough. It's summer ball is a challenge, but that's all part of it. Baseball's not easy. And again, it's all part of embracing that challenge. And me coming back from an injury, like he was talking about, I had to show up every day early to work with my head coach over there. And again, very grateful that he was committed enough to do that for me. But it's a grind, man. Summer ball is, again, it's different. It's not like travel ball in that sense, because you're there to get a lot of experience, especially collegiate experience. I mean, and it's cool because you get to play with all walks of life. I'm not just playing with guys that played at Power Five schools. I'm playing with guys that are from these D2 schools, D3s, have JUCOs on there. You get to kind of mingle with those guys, and it's cool to, it's always good to meet new brothers when you play baseball. That's kind of what it's all about. I've always loved that part of it. And I've got a new band of brothers after playing with the Flamingos.
Sure.
So it was cool, man. And I, again, definitely learned a lot from it.
For sure.
He made a name for himself as a star for the College of Charleston basketball teams in the mid to late 90s. And now, Jermel President is doing what he can to make sure that the Charleston area kids have a chance to succeed on the court and in life.
So I want to, give some of that back to the community as well. After college and after playing professionally, I started the Day Foundation just to be that wealth of knowledge to the kids in the community and parents as well.
College of Charleston Hall of Famer Jermel President said he saw a need for this while he was in school. So he founded the nonprofit Day Foundation. And its philosophy for success is based on what he calls his oatmeal recipe.
Let's go and finish together.
Basically teaches the game of basketball, focusing on skills development, nutrition, and education. Not only SAT, ACT type stuff, but education for parents in how to navigate through the different levels of athletics.
In closing, we talked about the oatmeal recipe a lot. And those 3 ingredients, skill development, education, and nutrition. And I know we talked about how important those things were in the high school setting. Now let's transition to the college setting, the collegiate setting, and talk about, skill development. How important was skill development to you and at this collegiate level?
It's very important. It's something that we focus in on every day, in every aspect, strength and performance, and, baseball specific stuff. Like, we have an entire section of our practice dedicated to individual work. Infielders will do this, outfielders will do that, pitchers will do this, catchers will do that. So they're very structured. He sets these practices from day one, man. Like he runs a very tight ship, but that's why we're able to perform consistently. That's why we are the way that we are. So it's very important to have something like that in the college program, especially one that competes at the highest level. And we're doing that day in and day out, whether that is doing something on the field. I mean, we're doing mindfulness stuff with our yoga instructor on some days, because again, sometimes it gets cloudy up here, which was also very interesting. That's something that was new to me. I didn't even think about that stuff. Yeah, some guys will talk about struggling mentally, but that didn't really happen too much to me in high school because I was always playing. I was always doing pretty well. School wasn't particularly hard for me. And then, you kind of turn the tables when you get to college. School's hard, not playing, it's hard.
For sure.
So it was cool to kind of go through something like that that helps you kind of navigate that stuff mentally.
For sure. And the education part of it, you're talking about playing the Flamingos, talking about redshirting, talking about experiencing different walks of life, different personalities. That's a lot of education. That's a lot of experiences you're gaining. How important how important is that to you, and how is it affecting your transition? Going to your second year.
Yeah, I mean, I cherish all that sort of stuff because baseball's not always going to be around. I look at it realistically. You can't play this game forever. I'm going to play it as long as I physically can, but it's the stuff outside of that that lasts forever. Those friendships, those relationships that you make with coaches, players, staff, anybody that you meet through the game. That's the beauty of it. And I've always loved that piece of it. And I got to, again, make kind of a big leap this year with knowledge and that sort of growth that I wasn't, because Summerville, South Carolina is only so big. Everybody's from the same area. We've all known each other our whole life. Get up to Duke, which is a very diverse campus. And I mean, even just talking to regular students, we've got international students. We've got plenty that come from places all over. Guys on our team, nobody's from South Carolina. There's one guy from South Carolina with me. But getting to meet those guys, man, that's what it's all about. And I've always loved that.
For sure. And lastly, you talked about, traveling, leaving 3, 4 in the morning, you had to get up at 12 o'clock. Well, sleep is important, nutrition is important, taking care of your body is important. Talk about how important nutrition is, and especially the athletes are listening to you. How important is sleep and nutrition when you got that type of regimen going at
Yeah.
level?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, that was probably like one of my bigger takeaways from this year, school year and summer, is how important that is. Like, when you're eating like shit, you're going to feel like shit. If you eat McDonald's before you practice, you're probably not going to have a pretty good practice.
Right.
So putting the right stuff in your body, if you have nutritionists to do, we're lucky enough to have people like that to guide and help us through those conversations, which we have pretty regularly. So we're all pretty educated on topics like that. But you don't ever really think about it because we're all young. We think that we can just eat whatever and we'll be fine. But that's really not the case. And I, again, figured that out this year. You have to, if you want to perform at the highest level, if you expect excellence out of yourself, which I do, you have to eat right. You have to find a way to get enough sleep, even though that can be challenging in college. They kind of make it pretty hard to do that when you got papers and exams and all that sort of stuff, especially when you're trying to tackle that on top of practices and workouts. We're getting done with our workouts around probably 8:30. Then we got to eat and get whatever we got to get done school-wise. So it all happens really fast, and before you know it, it's midnight, and you're like, I need to get to bed.
Right.
But again, it's all very important. We have very supportive staff to go along with that, which is one of the perks of going to a place like Duke. So couldn't be more thankful for those guys. But yeah, it's really important to fuel your body with the right stuff.
For sure. Well, that concludes our interview. And again, as always, hats go off to both of you. I think it's a blessing to experience you guys' journey, right? Because I'm learning as you guys go, right? I do the podcast to help the audience hear your message and hear different strategies, but I also do it to help myself in my journey, because one day I'm going to be what I'm saying, like you guys here, getting over that first hump. So I appreciate the knowledge you're giving not only the audience but to me as well.
Yeah, send your son over here to me, man.
All right, I got you. I got you, big guy. All right, man. Appreciate you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, man.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate
All
it.
right.
Yes, sir. All right. Peace. So there it goes, guys. Another one in the books. I want to thank the Christmas family for coming on and giving us their wealth of knowledge of how it's done and how to be a high caliber student athlete and get to a high level college and perform, and with the admirations of keep continuing to be the best, not only athlete but the best student, the best person they could possibly be. We appreciate you guys. Be right back. Don't forget to subscribe to the Triple Threat Podcast on your favorite listening platform. We are live on Apple, Google, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to your podcast. That's Triple Threat spelled 3 RIPLE 3 HREAT. Triple Threat Podcast. We'll be right back.
What Jermel is doing with the Day Foundation and the approach he's taking to help develop young athletes, first of all, getting them prepared from the academic standpoint, which, as you know as well as I do, Bobby, that's the most important element, to try to get them to eat healthy, to be able to train properly, to get the proper education, and then hopefully for those who are talented enough to have a chance to move on to perhaps even get a free education by going off to college. But I love what Jermel is doing. It's a wonderful program. Hopefully more people in the community will get behind it, and some of the businesses involved as well to help sponsor this program, because these are the kind of things that every community needs, looking out for the best interest of the youth. The future of this country is in our youth, and everything that we can do to help prepare them better for that is absolutely wonderful. And I can't express adequately enough my admiration and respect for what Jermel is doing, and hopefully he'll get a lot of help from a lot of people.
You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Jamel President, and on Twitter at President Jamel. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast, as I'll be bringing you a new interview every month.